It's Cardboard Time, episode number 86, and I'm your host, Arwen Kathke. On today's episode, we have reviews of Dice Realms, Quirky Circuits, and DroPolter. One thing that I do want to mention real quick is a little bit of a programming alert. I am doing a top 20 games of all time with Brian Chandler. That is tomorrow, Wednesday, May 8th. If you are listening to this on drop day at 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the Tabletop Express channel. So I'm very excited to talk with Brian about our top 20 games of all time. If you remember a few episodes back, we did top 20 games, or actually top 10 games with Roberto Lopez. This is going to be an updated list. There are some changes. I'm just going to throw that out there. First of all, you're going to see that kind of next step, my top 11 through 20. In addition, there are some changes to that top 10, but I'm not going to spoil what they are because that would be pretty rude. They're giving me the time to do this. Over on the Tabletop Express YouTube channel, we love the community over there and can't wait to share in that. So check us out during the event if you do get the chance, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be part of the conversation, and you'll get to see what those are live. So let's talk about the Shelf of Aspiration, and it is at 144. It is no change from the last episode, and you're probably wondering if you're astute and you're playing the home game. Arwen, didn't you say it was something different last time than 144? I think I said like 147. And there was a count discrepancy because on one of the older episodes, I had actually just copied a number over. I think it was like 2 or 3 episodes ago, and found the mistake. And I was wondering kind of what that discrepancy was, and actually did find it. So the official count is definitely 144, which is lower than what I expected, which is great. We love that. So that is where we are at. 2 games incoming with A Smile and a Gun and Puppets in High Places, both by Amanda Valorant. For reasons that you will get to see soon, I did get copies of both of those. Puppets in High Places is actually a prototype of a game that is going to be coming to crowdfunding very soon. The games I did play with A Smile and a Gun, I will be reviewing that in the future, because that was a review copy, and DroPolter. So that is a game that I will be talking about on this episode. But we do have a couple of things that I did get played a little bit earlier this year that I wanted to circle back to as I'm going through some of my backlog and trying to talk about these games. So I wanted to start off with Dice Realms. And Dice Realms is a 2 to 4 player game, plays in 45 to 60 minutes, designed by Thomas Lehman. The art is by Martin Hoffman, Klaus Steffen, and Mirko Suzuki. It is published by Rio Grande, and there is quite the description on this one that I got from BGG, so sit tight with me as I go through this. In Dice Realms, players vie to improve and expand their medieval realms while contending with fate. Realms are represented by customizable dice with faces that can be popped out and upgraded for better ones. Each game is different as during setup, players draw 5 tiles from a bag of 35 to determine which extra die faces will be available beyond the 5 standard lines of faces. Those come in lands, which represent victory points, farming, which represents grain, which is a resource that you're going to be using during the game and potentially have to pay, commerce, which is coins, settlements, which is your defense, and then progress, which is upgrading those die faces. Each player begins with 2 identical dice and can gain more dice during play, in addition to upgrading their starting dice. Play is mostly simultaneous. To begin, players roll their dice, with one player rolling the fate die, which will affect all players. If winner appears on the fate die, players must pay 1 grain for each die they own or take a negative 2-point misery chip for each grain they lack. Players may then re-roll 1 die for free and use any re-roll or set a die token that allow you to choose the die face result that they have previously invested in for further control. Players collect any victory points, grain, and coins shown on their die faces. Coins are used to acquire upgrades, purchase reroll and set of die tokens, repair destroyed dice faces, or buy a new die, which also costs 2 grain, expanding their realm. At most, 1 coin can be saved in your treasury from round to round. Upgrades are the heart of the game. Players will receive upgrades from upgrade symbols showing or by spending coins. Die faces have 1, 2, or 4 dots on them to change from a 1 to 4 in the same color, such as from a yellow face collecting 2 grain to the 4-dot version that collects 4 grain and 2 coins, costs 3 upgrades, while changing from one face to a different color face at the same level costs just 1 upgrade. So using upgrades, cross grades, and the free reroll each turn, players craft their dice to specialize them and dramatically tilt the probability that a desired face is rolled. Of course, players will want different things at different times, upgrades to kind of get your engine going, coins to expand the realm, food if a string of harsh winners are rolled, which does definitely happen. Defense against that pesky robber on the fate die, victory point chips to race for victory, or whatever die face is the key to winning a particular setup. If during a round any player needs to use a 10 victory point token, a -10 misery token, or a 10 grain token because of all the smaller value tokens have been used, then the game ends after finishing that round. Otherwise, the player with the fate die passes it clockwise to the next player and a new round begins. When the game ends, players tally their points earned, both by victory point chips and by improved die faces, with 2-dot faces being worth 1 victory point and 4-dot faces being worth 2 victory points. Whoever has the most victory points at the end of the game wins. So that was a lot. That was basically the whole game in a nutshell. And I actually skipped some of that for you. So, I did get this at PAX Unplugged Flea in 2022 after I heard some really good things from Eric Gergatz at Got a Lot of Games. He was talking about it, how wonderful it was. I did get the opportunity to pick this up for about $40, if I remember correctly. Somebody was selling it used, and I figured that was my opportunity to grab it. And that's something that I will talk about at the end of this review. That does come into play with my final judgment of the game. I did hear this compared to Dominion with dice. You can see the connection, especially the feel of it with the theme, which is incredibly bland, incredibly boring. It's everything that Dominion was and maybe a little bit worse. I found Dominion actually maybe sometimes a little bit more enjoyable than this. So if you don't like Dominion's theming, that kind of medieval, sometimes fantasy theme, but mostly medieval, you're not going to like this. And that is something that I've seen in a lot of these dice builders, except for Kapow. Kapow's kind of been an exception to that, where the theming has been kind of done. It's tried and true. Rattlebones was a little bit different. It was off the wall, and I guess it was unique, but it didn't really kind of shine through at all either. That said, so the theme is boring. It does not help this game's case whatsoever. There is a ton in this box. There's a lot of variability. And you can kind of customize your game if you're going to do something, customize that you want a specific game style. You want to put your misery or put your players through misery. You want a lot of negative events, or you can have a lot of positive events. There's a lot of variability in this game that's in the box as it is. So you're going to have a lot of replay value if this is something that you do want. This is really a game that's mostly about figuring out what the best combos you can make with the available special faces. Really, the secret sauce in this game is all about that variable special face. How can I combo that with what comes in every single game to make the best engine possible? I will say that from a production value, the dice definitely felt sturdy. They held together well, but you were still able to pop out the faces relatively easily. I did think that they did a great job as far as the quality of the dice and making sure that the fit was good, not too tight, not too loose, at least in the copy that I have. There's a lot of symbology in this game. Once you learn the basics, it does make the game flow very easily. You can see exactly what you got. You can see your victory points. You can see your coins. You can see your upgrades. Once you know those kind of basics, it does help expedite the game quite a bit. You don't have to look at the tiles as much. But it does take a lot of learning to get those symbols down and understand exactly what they do. And if you're looking at it from the outside on a game that doesn't have a whole lot of theme to it, you might have a harder time getting some of your newer players to pick this one up. I will say that the game definitely stuck to that 45 to 60 minute time frame. Once you've learned it, it's very quick, it's very snappy. You do your rolls, you do your upgrades, and then you're on to the next turn. So I really like that. From a color vision perspective, I didn't have any issues. I could see how some of the colors on the tiles might be a little bit difficult to sort through for people with more severe color vision issues. But for me, I didn't have any sort of issues with it. So getting into my final thoughts on this game, and it is a little bit complex, and I think it's going to be situational for different players. I'm not sure how often this is actually going to get out to the table, but I'm almost kind of wondering, do I really need 4 dice building games in my collection? I have Kapow, I have Dice Forge, I have Rattlebones, and now I have Dice Realms as well. So I'm kind of mulling that over in my head, and I'm just thinking about what's going to stick around. And I think Kapow definitely stays. It's heads up. It feels different. It's got a different theme on it. I like that nature of it. I had a really good time with that game. So that's going to stick around. This is definitely going to be sticking around just for the sheer variability of it. Again, the theme didn't bother me that much, but I know it's going to be a sticking point for some people. It is very bland. It is very dull. So it's really down to a game like Dice Forge and Rattlebones, and probably Rattlebones will be the first to go. I'm thinking Dice Forge might actually also go, just if I need that extra shelf space. Both are perfectly fine games. I see this getting played much more than either of them, though, because it does satisfy that dice building, engine building lover in me, than I got in those other two. So I would say for my recommendation for this, I would try somebody's copy first before you're going to make that investment. I was able to get this for $40. I don't regret that. It's a keeper for me. It's a no-brainer. I'm not mad about that at all. If it had been the full MSRP of $120, I would not pay that for this. There's a lot in the box. There's a lot of content, but the theme does drag it down significantly. So I think the other thing is you would need to play a ton of this game to make it worth that investment. And once again, this is really a strong reason why you should try getting games from like convention fleas or local shop fleas if you can. Just from the standpoint of maybe picking up a bargain like this and making something that might have been out of your reach and you might not have considered this to be that, kind of price point of a game. This might bring it down to the point that you're happy with the purchase and you're very comfortable with that. So that's my recommendation. This is going to my keeper shelves, but it could be supplanted if somebody actually makes a similar game with a better theme that kind of sits better with me than just the same medieval, like, oh, we're building a village and yada, yada, yada. So lots of pros. Definitely some cons. That is Dice Realms. And I also wanted to talk about Quirky Circuits. Now, this is a 1 to 4 player game in 15 to 30 minutes, designed by Nikki Valens. The art is by Danilyn Reyes, and it was published by Plaid Hat Games. So Quirky Circuits is a game of robot programming silliness in which each player contributes to the programming of an adorable robo-friend. But be warned, no one knows which commands the other players will be tossing in. Will you be able to help the little robot complete its task, or will you unleash automated mayhem? Be careful, for you'll have to work together before your robot's battery is drained. With 21 scenarios of increasing intensity, Quirky Circuits is guaranteed to provide hours of brain-bending fun. So this I picked up because I had heard some good things about it at Barnes & Noble. I didn't even realize that this was not the full game. It is a variant of it called Penny and Gizmo's Snow Day. So it does come with 2 of the little robots. It's a condensed version. It's a smaller version. But even that said, I had heard a lot about it for $10. I figured it was worth a try, even if I didn't like it. So this really is very simple, goofy fun, a lot of cooperative tension, very easy to pick up. It's really kind of hard to get too mad. This is a programming game where you're playing all of your cards face down, and you have a general idea of what they're going to do, but you don't know like the quantity or direction. So for instance, turns, you don't know which direction the turn is going to be, or if it's a U-turn. You have movement, which you don't know if it's going to be like 2 spaces, 3 spaces, to the end of until you hit a wall, that kind of thing. So really a pretty fun, programming game that you're not going to be too mad at your friends for playing something that you didn't like. And I think the theme does help. The theme is a little bit cuter. The board and the actions make sense thematically. Everything is self-contained within the book itself. So you can go in and actually play in the book, which makes setup a much easier task than putting together boards and trying to set up walls and that kind of thing. The scenario difficulty escalation also eases the teach of the game. It's incredibly easy to get somebody into starting off with the initial scenario. You're just basically playing cards down. You're doing what they say to in order, and you're trying to achieve a goal of collecting things. That's it. And it was super easy to lay that out and for somebody to come in and see that. And, I give them credit for, coming up with these scenarios that taught things in a progressive manner, but were still challenging. So that was very good as well. This is a game that you can play with smaller kids. I would say about 8+. I think it would be a great intro to programming skills and games. If you do want to teach your child more of that programming game style, this might be something that you look into. not just for the cute factor, but for the simplicity of the teach as well. And these games do go quick. You can play multiple in a session. And as far as color vision goes, absolutely no issues at all for me. You get a certain amount of cards. You're all working on the same board with the same character. I didn't get fully through the game, so I didn't see anything that was like color related that might trip me up. But I can't say for certain that there's not something later in the game that might be an issue. So for my final thoughts on this one, this is also going to the keeper shelves, but it is only going to stay on the keeper shelves until I can find the full version. And then I'm going to sell this version off. That's the lighter version. If you are looking for a fun and cute programming game that can expand to younger audiences while still be very enjoyable for parents, this is definitely it. I think that this is going to be a game that does get out with some of my lighter audiences, just for a good time, a lighter game, maybe even something after, we've been out and we want to come back to something fun. So that was Quirky Circuits. I also did want to talk about DroPolter. So this is 2 to 5 players, 20 minutes, designed by Paul Schultz. Art is by Rie Komatsuzaki and Jun Sasaki, and this is published by Oink Games. So if you go back to episode 82, you're probably thinking, hey, this sounds familiar. We just heard about it a few episodes ago. I did actually get to play it after Tiffany talked about it on episode 82. It kind of inspired me to go back and actually play my copy of it. I did pick this up at PAX Unplugged. I wanted to kind of talk about my thoughts. So I am absolutely horrible at this game. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with dexterity games. There are some dexterity games I absolutely love. If you look at Crokinole, things like that, where you're flicking, not necessarily throwing things across the room or doing like really goofy stuff. I really like Yum Yum Island. That's kind of legendary and lore in and of itself. So I like those kind of things. This was definitely a little bit different type of dexterity game where you had stuff in your hand and you're trying to basically drop what is on a card. And then you get bells as this victory condition. But if you drop any of those bells out of your hand, those are lost to the table. So you don't get those back. And basically you see your victory points slipping out of your hand, literally. And the first person to 5 victory points is the winner. I love the different shapes and textures. I loved how the small bells interacted with those objects. I'm looking at you, Rings, where the bells would get caught in the ring and you were trying to drop the ring and try to figure out how to make that happen with your hand, because you can't use 2 hands, it's just one. So trying to figure out how to manipulate it was very, very interesting. I had a lot of fun with this. I played it with Allie. I would love to play this at more than 2 people. It is still fun at 2 players. It's very quick. If you have 2 players, it's a 10-minute or less game. I would say that 20-minute game is more like, a full complement of 5 players coming in and playing this game. But yeah, I really did enjoy this. For my final thoughts, it was a fun little dexterity game. I think it'll do well in a purse or a backpack. You do have to be kind of careful on what surface you play it on. If you do drop stuff off the table, the bells do like to roll a little bit. So that is something to be cognizant of. But yeah, I do foresee myself bringing this to conventions, bringing this to maybe some dinners with friends and just having something to play real quick as we're waiting for food. And yeah, really enjoyed this one. a great little dexterity game by Oink Games called DroPolter. And I think that's going to do it for this episode. We will have an interview coming up. I'm not going to tell you who, but we do have interviews that are going to be starting back up again once I get, kind of my backlog of work done and taken care of. But looking forward to picking those back up again. As you recall, on the episode 77, I think it was, where I talked about my New Year's resolutions. That was one thing that I definitely want to do more of. And speaking of interviews, I'm hoping to do more of them in the future at conventions. And I was kind of on the fence about Origins this year. I wasn't quite sure if I was going to go or not, and I got an opportunity that was too good to pass up. So it's looking like I am going to be at Origins Game Fair in June in Columbus, like usual. I was going to skip, and I decided against it. Just because of the situation, it was kind of too good to pass up. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing people at Gen Con. I will be returning to Gen Con this year after missing it last year. So looking forward to that as well. I will be heading down to Atlanta, Georgia for Dragon Con in Atlanta in September. So that Labor Day weekend, I think that's going to be kind of an every other year type tradition, but we'll see. And then PAX Unplugged is on the plans as well. So that is kind of my convention season this year, kind of shaping up with the potential of maybe doing some smaller conventions as well as the opportunity arises. So looking forward to seeing all of you there, looking forward to talking with you there. It's always a pleasure to talk to listeners and, get games out with some people sometimes. I mean, that's what this is all about. So that's a little update from me. So I think we're going to wrap it up. If you want to know more about Cardboard Time, you can check out cardboardtime.com. Our Instagram is at cardboard_time, and Blue Sky is at cardboardtime. The Discord on the Tabletop Express server, just email me for an invite. And to do that, you can email cardboardtime@gmail.com. And as always, questions, suggestions, ideas for discussion topics, always looking forward to hearing those as well. And don't forget about tomorrow night, May 8th, the top 20 over on the Tabletop Express server as well. Looking forward to talking with Brian Chandler about our top 20 games. Some interesting surprises I think people are going to be surprised to see. So looking forward to doing that, and hopefully it doesn't go too late. I got to work the next day. But as always, thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks around the table for another episode of Cardboard Time.